Hello everybody, welcome back to this YouTube channel. My name is Julia and in today's clip we are continuing my series One Product Only, and if you saw the previous clip you might have guessed the next product, but if not, this is it. We are discussing Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Eye Trends palette in the shade Pink Love. And just like last time, we're gonna have the rating system based on the 5 pillars: packaging, formulation, versatility, compact, and price point. But first things first, I'm gonna show you how this eyeshadow palette performed on today's eye look, including swatching the entirety of the palette. Starting off with the mid shade number 5, I'm applying this one with a precise brush and then switch to a fluffier brush to blend it out. Then I apply shade number 3 in the inner part of my eye, while on the outer edge of my eye, I apply shade number 6. Then on the lower lash line, I proceed with shade number 7 and I extend this one as if it would be my eyeliner. I then extended it on the lid because I wanted that graphic line effect. Then I'm adding dimension with shade number 2, 9, as well as number 1 in the inner corner of my eye. And I ensure I extend this color into the crease. I apply a burgundy pencil into my lower and upper lash line and make sure I set it in place with shade number 6. Seal the look with the exaggerized mascara from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the final result. I really like how it turned out. Now I'm gonna swatch the palette. So we are starting with shade number 1, 2, and 3. Then we are moving to the second row, shade number 4, 5, and 6. Then we are followed by the last row, 7, 8, and 9. These are the full swatches. Now that we obviously applied the eyeshadow and discussed about it, let's dive into the rating system. So starting off with the packaging, we can see this palette has a clear clasp. And based on their marketing campaign for this particular product, you can tell they thought more about the makeup artists rather than the consumers. Because they had a palette similar to this in 9 shades, that it was more luxe, much heavier, and it looked as if it was more intended for the consumer because it also had a big mirror. With that in mind, given that they have the marketing campaign around having this variety of shades, easy access to see the colors in it, I wanna give a 4 out of 5 because I can't give it a 5. It feels quite cheap. However, I do see the intent of making it makeup artist friendly. It is not that heavy, and makeup artists are always looking for that in their kits because they have to carry a million stuff with them. Next, let's talk about formulations. So I'm gonna start off with the matte shadows. I was really impressed with how pigmented they are and how easily blendable they are. And the queen of the show in terms of the mattes is this lightweight pink, because when you see a lightweight pink like this, usually it doesn't show up like this. It is quite just unpigmented and it doesn't keep up the shade in the inner corner. Even if I put it on top, look at that. Look at that. Don't worry, I'm gonna blend it out and put some shimmer back onto it. But seriously, when you have such a lightweight kind of color, like a pastel color, and they do perform like this, you know it's a good palette. And when it comes to the shimmers, I've never been disappointed with Charlotte Tilbury's shimmers. I think they just have this really stunning sparkle, very fine. You don't need any glitter glue. We are not even talking about something like that around this palette at all. Like, I can't keep my fingers away from just the shimmers. They look just like a mirror. You can really tell in this palette the money was put into the formulation rather than the packaging. And because of that, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 because I swear to God, you can never go wrong with an eyeshadow palette from Charlotte Tilbury. They are very twinkly in terms of like the shimmers. They feel like a fairy tale on your eyes. They are somewhat natural, but yet they have a massive impact onto your eyelid. And the mattes are so easily blendable to a point where if you are a beginner, you can smash it. Now onto its versatility. I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be, I think, one of the harshest rating because essentially I don't think you can do much with it because there are so many pinks out here that you can't all of a sudden have like an orange eyeshadow or like a brown eyeshadow because, I mean, you can see the color scheme. It is extremely pink coded. The only shade that is not pink is this golden shimmery white eyeshadow that is usually intended for the inner corner. And so because this rating pillar is thinking of its versatility from the perspective of in how many scenarios a consumer can use this palette, or even a makeup artist, not that many. So that's the kind of like way we are rating at this section, and with that in mind, it's gonna be a 2 out of 5. I know it's harsh, it's just the realistic way of saying you can't just buy this palette and expect browns, purples, blues, you know, just like a variety of makeup looks. You can just expect pink hued eyeshadow looks, which is fine if you love it, but as a general kind of like perspective, this is not that versatile. Now it's all about compact, that I already sort of tackled obviously in the packaging section just because it was needed to rate the product. But what I'm gonna speak about in this section is that it doesn't have a mirror. And when I'm thinking about like the compact section for the rating system, I also think about traveling. Like, is it travel friendly? Is it like handy? Can you put it in your like everyday makeup bag for work? And in my personal defense, I always prefer to have a mirror into my eyeshadow palette, just because I would never ever carry around like a hand mirrored mirror with me. Even if I'm traveling, I don't like to carry something like that. I always prefer to have a mirror into my eyeshadow palette, because generally speaking, all the eyeshadow palettes are quite like wide, and the mirror is wide enough for me to see myself. So because it doesn't have a mirror, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, just because outside of that aspect, it is extremely compact friendly, it is extremely lightweight. Obviously it was intended for a makeup artist, and hence why it doesn't have a mirror, which I don't personally prefer. So it's a 4 out of 5. And at last, price point. So this palette retails for £49, which is really steep, taking into consideration the packaging. I know the formula is gorgeous. However, where I find it a bit questionable with the price point is because the other luxe kind of like version to this palette that was limited edition, it had the same kind of like 9 format eyeshadow span. It also had shimmers, it also had matte eyeshadows. That one was retailing for £60, and it had like a very heavy luxe component and also a mirror and some design on the packaging. Like, it was quite like, you know, well thought. Even though £60 is still really expensive, at least it had that element of extraness. But this palette doesn't have the packaging to a point where I justify £49. However, I do give credit to the formulation, so it's a really nice formula. But given that it's Charlotte Tilbury and it's only difference between that really luxe component palette and this palette of £11, I really think this is a bit steep in price because of the packaging. I do give credit to the formula itself, but I can't justify the packaging, and I just want to give it a 3 out of 5 because the packaging really had a massive impact on my rating essentially. And so with everything combined, the total rating for this product is approximately 3.5, which means it's a nice product to have, but you don't have to necessarily buy it. I find with like the majority of Charlotte Tilbury products, they are nice to have, but they are quite expensive, and the more you look into every single little detail, the more you realize it's just nice to have. Put it on your Christmas wish list, put it onto your birthday wish list, but don't necessarily go and splurge £49 for a palette that is quite dedicated for makeup artists, having like an array of color scheme per each palette. They are not very versatile. These were not thought towards the consumer, but rather the makeup artist. It makes sense, and that's fine. Until next time, let me know down below if you can guess the next product we'll be discussing in this series.